to a live YouTube edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our CBSSports.com NBA writer and analyst Sam Quinn. Bill Reiter, our NBA insider, will be along in a second. Sam, got a little interesting in the fourth quarter, but Team USA pulls it out. They win the gold medal over France, 98-87. It's their fifth straight gold medal. And, I was like, where should we start with this? Before the fourth quarter, and then the fourth quarter happened. And I think we have to call Brad Bodkin because, oh my God, Steph Curry.
Yeah, just call him Ratatouille because he's the finest chef in France. What is it, 17 threes in the last two games? 4 in a row down the stretch for in the fourth quarter to seal the win. I mean, I think we assumed coming into this game that if Team USA won gold, LeBron was going to be the tournament's MVP. It's got to be Steph now, right? Did he just take MVP right out from under LeBron?
I mean, it was LeBron for the entirety of the tournament until maybe Yabusele dunked on him, and then he got it back. But yes, Steph Curry, I mean, they really needed him, right? And we were laughing about Brad because a couple shows ago, Brad was saying he was sort of hemming and hawing about Steph and not being clutch and whatever. This was a massive moment. And he came through and then some in this. 24 points, as you mentioned. He had 8 threes in the game. He had a dagger to put them up 6 late. Then he hit another 3 dagger to put them up 9. Then he hit another to go up 9 again. And then they had him double teamed and he hoisted a rainbow 3 that had no business going in. And of course it went in. You might be right. Maybe he's the tournament MVP now because that game was a little too close for comfort until he went supernova.
That last one was like in the video games when you push the sliders all the way and you're not allowed to miss. I mean, oh my God. That last one, he was true. Like, I didn't think he could see the basket. He had 2 guys in front of him. Oh my God. I'm still speechless at this. And it feels so fitting, right? That he hadn't played in the Olympics before this. But, we talked about this a little bit after the Serbia game. When you think of the marquee moments of Steph's career, you tend not to think about the biggest games, right? Because he has Durant for 2 of those finals. The first finals, there's no Love and there's no Kyrie, obviously. When he's winning championships until the last one against Boston, it wasn't really dramatic most of the time. The biggest shot of his career before the last week was probably that OKC overtime shot in 2016. And that was in a regular season game. Now we watch this. This is probably the marquee clutch moment of Steph's career. When we tell the story of Stephen Curry, we might start with the 4 threes in the fourth quarter against France.
And they were all like almost consecutive. That last one, especially where he got double teamed, I thought, okay, he's going to pass out of that one. And not only did he not pass out of it, for it to teardrop in, like what an absolute heat check 3 that was.
That's the greatest heat check shot any basketball player has made at any level. I don't know what else.
I think it honestly might be. You're kind of talking me into him being tournament MVP just for the fourth quarter alone there. I want to thank everybody for joining us live on YouTube. Welcome into all of you. As you can see, we've been throwing up some comments there. So if you want to leave a comment, might throw it up on the show. Please hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the program as well. We're going to be doing more of this when the NBA season rolls around. Everybody's going to need a break after this. I don't even smoke, Sam. I think I need a cigarette after that game. That was absolutely ridiculous. You had mentioned that this is Steph's first Olympics, probably his only Olympics, right? I mean, we finally got to see him and LeBron team up. It really didn't disappoint. I mean, I have enjoyed every moment. I know you're going to go on vacation. We could all use a rest because it was a very long NBA season followed by the Olympics, but I enjoyed every moment of that. Like LeBron with the gray beard, more of that, please, right? Like showing us at 39 years old that he is still every bit LeBron James. It was his team. And then Steph, like having a moment that you are absolutely right. When we think about Steph, whoever writes the first paragraph of, Steph when he's done, that story, it's going to be in there. Like, remember when he went absolutely wild, teamed up with LeBron, and they won a gold medal.
I think when we saw the list of this roster and all of the famous names that were on it, there was almost a dream team feeling to it, right? On a few levels. Obviously, it's probably the most accomplished roster Team USA has sent. Maybe 2008, but since 1992, since the Dream Team. But they were also, it was the expendables. It was the old guys. It was LeBron and Steph and Curry, and then even like Kawhi and AD's getting up there and Embiid's getting up there. But I think when we saw this, we sort of assumed it's going to be a little bit like 1992, where they just waltz to the end, they get to the gold, and they're not going to be challenged at all. Well, now we actually see it, and it's so rewarding. Like we saw Steph and LeBron and KD play in really meaningful games, like really difficult games. We got to actually see them as teammates when it counted, but not just an exhibition. And that makes it mean that much more.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That was amazing. I mean, getting to see this, like, later in the show, we're going to forecast our 2028 team. You're going to forecast it. You're going to walk us through. But it's, you put a couple of different restrictions on it, but I think this, at least for the foreseeable future, is the last, like, oh man, this is going to be, like the absolute A team. Like when the roster was announced, I was like, this is the not messing around crew, right? And going forward, we're going to have some really good look. The American basketball team is always going to be favored, no matter who they throw on it. But it's not going to be all A-listers, 1 through 12. This roster was unreal.
It was. Maybe you could quibble with 2008, but it's probably the best, or at least the most accomplished roster that they've had since the Dream Team, right? Like, it's not even just having a few guys at the top. It's having all 12, or like Kawhi, I don't want to say gets cut, but Kawhi goes home with the injury. You saw what happened to Tatum. Like, would that have been Kawhi? Would Kawhi have not been playing? That's how deep the roster was. And it makes it really does say that much more about the world, that Team USA didn't just get challenged once, right? It wasn't just one weird shooting game like against Serbia. They really had to earn it. That really does tell me, like, Team USA is always going to be the favorite. They're always going to be the deepest team in the field. But it's getting a lot closer. And, like, before we really get into future Olympics and all that, I do kind of just want to say there is a real chance that we just watched the last championship game that LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Kevin Durant ever play in, right? Like, none of them right now are on teams that we think of as like immediate championship contenders. All three of them clearly still capable of being those guys. But given the teams that they play on, like, we might never see them in the finals again. We might never see them go on really, really deep playoff runs again. If this was the end for those guys, if this was the last championship push that they go on, I mean, it couldn't have gone out on a higher note. This couldn't have been more exciting, more dramatic. It's everything we could have wanted as basketball fans.
That's really interesting. I hadn't really considered that might be the last championship moment for one or all of them. I'm still hopeful that 45-year-old LeBron will team up with Steph Curry and KD. They'll run it back one more time. You never know. But when you had mentioned this roster versus like the Dream Team and the 08 team, Bill and I had done this experiment, this exercise, like before the Olympics began. And we came down on Dream Team greater than symbol this team, then greater than symbol the 08 team. Because the 08 team was a really good team, the Redeem team. But they also, when you get into like the Carlos Boozer, Michael Redd, Tayshaun Prince area, then you're like, all right, what are we doing here? It's definitely this team or the Dream Team. Before I was Dream Team, I might not be now. It's really close.
The thing about the Dream Team is the three biggest names are obviously Jordan, Magic, and Bird. Magic and Bird were done at that point, right? Like, Magic could still play, but he was retired because of HIV, and Bird, his back was gone, right? Like, everyone on this team, they were older. Like, LeBron is 39. It's not the same as having 29-year-old LeBron. But as we saw throughout this tournament, LeBron is still LeBron. And if you're looking for a tiebreaker, if you want to make the argument that this roster was better or more accomplished than the Dream Team, like, that would be your way to do it. It's a toss-up. I mean, maybe if Kawhi was there, that would be a tiebreaker, but like, there wasn't real. I mean, I guess there was a Leitner on the Dream Team, which is sort of the asterisk. I guess Halliburton would be the Leitner.
Sure.
There's not really a Derek White on the Dream Team. There's not really a role player on the Dream Team. But look, you line those teams. I am with you on that. At the very least, they're the two best, and 08's probably third.
Man, what a fun run this was. In retrospect now, when you look back at it, I don't remember if you were on the show, post South Sudan or, where they were scuffling maybe a little bit against Australia. In retrospect, does it seem kind of silly to you that like there was any hand wringing at all over this team?
I mean,
although the Serbia game,
they came close to losing twice, right?
Yeah.
And like the Serbia game really came down to Serbia missed all 10 of its threes in the fourth quarter.
Yes, the fourth
And if you
quarter.
really want to distill the France game down to one thing, France, I think, made 9 threes. Team USA made 18. Team USA made all of its free throws, and France missed 7. Like, it really was just as simple. There's more to it, but you can distill it and just say, if France shoots a little bit better, Team USA doesn't win gold. If Steph doesn't make 9 threes against Serbia, Team USA doesn't win gold. Like, I think some hand-wringing is legitimate when you're talking about a team this talented, because at this point, it's not a 7-game series. You don't just have to be good enough to be the best team. You have to be so good that you're not in danger in a single elimination setting where a couple bad quarters of shooting, a couple of dumb fouls, a couple of dumb turnovers. There are so many ways to lose a basketball game, even when you're the better team. And clearly now we're at a point where even if Team USA is the best, we're within the margin of error now. Team USA is capable of losing a single game to the best teams in the world. So I do think
I think we've been within the margin of error.
Well,
you don't think? I mean, like all the other teams, look, they're not packed with NBA players, but they're packed with some NBA players, right? I mean, Joker is the best player in the world. And we saw what happened in the Serbia game where with a handful of other NBA players and some good professional players, he almost took down a roster that was infinitely deeper 1 through 12, right? I think, prior to that, there have been flashes from other teams where you're like, okay, yeah, margin of error sounds right to me. I still think Team USA is going to be the most talented team no matter who they throw out there in any tournament they play in.
It's a depth thing more than anything, right? Like if you look at the tournament, did Team USA have one of the 3 best? Like Jokic is better than anyone Team USA has. Giannis is better than anyone Team USA has. SGA, maybe, probably, like it's a toss-up. Team USA probably isn't going to have the best player in the tournament for a long time now because Wembanyama is there. But in the past, the only team that ever really consistently challenged Team USA was Spain. Now you look at it and you feel like you go into any Olympics moving forward, there might be 4 or 5 teams where if things go right, they really could take a game here or there off of Team USA.
One of the teams we just saw today, right? I mean, what's Wemby going to look like in 4 years? I mean, already when you're talking about the depth thing, I think that's absolutely right. But already this year in the MVP race, 4 of the top 5 were not American, right? I mean, like, so you're going to have these guys sprinkled out on these other teams where you're like, okay, yeah, you could make a case for some other team, like really pushing them. And then also, like I said, Wemby is on the come now. I mean, to what he's done in the last year has been remarkable. I mean, and he's got an entire career ahead of him, Sam.
It's really daunting to think that this is the worst he's ever going to be, right? Like he was maybe
until the
best
end,
player on the floor outside of Curry at the end. Like he had a spectacular game today. He's only going to get better, right? Like this is him as a rookie, and we're about to play him again in his prime in 4 years. Like we joke, like, 4 years from now he might be the best player in the NBA. 4 months from now, he might be the best player in the NBA.
He might be now. Yeah, he might be.
Really, he's not far, right? Like in a few months, in a few years, he's going to be the pretty clear alpha, I think, in the next few years when they play again in 28, maybe in the World Cup in 27. So, yeah, I mean, look, Team USA, there's so many infrastructural advantages that you have by virtue of being in the United States. You have the biggest population. You have the most passion for the sport. You have the most money being put into the sport. Like, Team USA is always going to be able to fill out its roster with stars. But when you have one guy like that on the other side, all it really takes is, can you make your threes? Can you make your free throws? Can you, like, not commit dumb fouls and turnovers? Like, can you do the things that get you close enough that in a 40-minute sample, you can win a game? France is there. Serbia is there. Canada's going to be there. Australia might get there. Like, there are going to be a lot of countries that can do it.
Is this just to put a little bit of a bow on the Wemby thing, is this the best, and include the Olympics as well, obviously, the best rookie season we've seen?
I mean, I think you have to say Magic Johnson, right?
Magic, because he won a title,
winning
right?
Winning the finals. Yeah. Wes Unseld wins MVP as a rookie. It's a short list. I think if you
I was thinking Magic too.
What?
Just because, I was thinking Magic too, because also he had to play center and and he wins a championship in his first year. But Like, yeah, that list is like 3 people.
Yeah. I mean, also Wemby was playing on a very bad team, right? Like in the NBA, if he
Mhm.
was on a team that was capable of competing for, like, if you put Wemby on the Thunder instead of Holmgren, do you think the Thunder would have won the championship? I think they would have had a shot. I think they would have been better off than they were, right? Like, I
I
think if
mean,
he had been on a championship caliber team, he might have won Finals MVP. Like, as far as like how good he is after 1 year in the NBA, he's up there with anyone.
yeah, I'm a big believer in Chet, but yeah, I mean, like Wemby is better than Chet, so yeah, they might have won it if you had flopped those two. Want to thank everybody again for joining us live on YouTube. Bill Reiter will be along in just a second. If you want to leave us a comment, we'll pop it up on the show. Please also hit the like button and subscribe as well. Producer Aaron passes us along. Steph's true shooting percentage today was 92%, which I think that's pretty good, Sam. And he also posits an interesting question here from an NBA perspective. How do the Warriors watch what just happened with Steph and hesitate to trade Pajemski or Kuminga and get Steph another bite at this apple? Like I was of the, and obviously if you could get Markkanen, that'd be one thing, but you can't. So now you have to figure out what that would be. But I'd be pretty hesitant to trade Pajemski. Kuminga, I'm less high on. I know a lot of people think that he's, his career trajectory is pointing up, and he's only 22 years old, and Kerr finally committed to playing him and all that stuff. But I'd be more willing to move on from him. But after watching this, do you think they go, man, we got to try again?
It's funny. I was talking to somebody on Twitter yesterday about who the best NBA player on this team is. And in a 6-game setting, like it's probably LeBron and Curry and Durant. It's a little different when you're playing 82 games and you have a guy in his late 30s and you have to wonder, like, how is he going to look in May after 8 long months? Is he going to miss 25 games in the regular season? And is that going to knock us down in the standings? So I get it, because if you get to the end and you have Stephen Curry, if you get to the end and you have LeBron James, you have a chance. It's just getting to the end is that much harder when they're at that age, right? Like, you could make a credible argument that Jason Tatum is the best NBA player on Team USA, and he got DNP'd twice. That's not a fault of Jason Tatum. It's just different when you're comparing an 82-game sample with 4 games or 4 rounds after that versus just a 6-game sprint. So I get the hesitance. Now, they might have missed the boat with Markkanen. They can't, like, the advantage of Markkanen for them was that he was only making $18 million. It was easy to match salary there.
Sure.
So now if you're trying to get another star to Golden State, most likely that guy is going to be making 40 million, 45 million, something like that. And you have to give up that much more off of your roster to get him. I don't know. Like, I'm not as hesitant to give up Podziemski or Kuminga, because I think teams get into this trap where they look at a guy like that and they say, oh, Podziemski is the future, Kuminga is the future. I think it's more likely that Podziemski and Kuminga are like really good starters down the line, like useful players to have, but they're not going to be like the centerpieces of a championship contender, right? Like, I think it's more likely that they're just like really good starters for a long time, guys that are useful to have on your team, but you're not going to get another Steph, right? Like, how long is it going to be before the Warriors have another Stephen Curry on their team? It might be 25 years before you have another player this good, even in his late 30s. So yeah, my inclination is just generally when I'm building a team, either be all in or all out. None of this 2 timeline stuff. Either trade the
Well,
young
I
guys.
think that they're off the 2 timelines.
They
thing now, for
specifically
sure.
are, because they have some drama there. But what I'm saying generally is, like, the Lakers are in the same boat, right? Like, they have these picks they can trade. They have Austin Reeves. And it's like, look, I think Austin Reeves is a very good NBA player. I think he's somebody you want to have around for a long time, and he's gone on a good contract. Is Austin Reeves going to be the face of the Lakers when LeBron and AD are done? Probably not. If you can move him and those picks and get to a place where you can genuinely contend for a title right now, you have that chance. You're not going to have that chance 3, 4, 5 years down the line, because Austin Reeves is not LeBron James. He's not Anthony Davis. So I'm just of the opinion, pick a direction. You're either you're in or you're out.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think part of my hesitancy on trading Podziemski, and I guess to a much less extent, Kuminga, is just what you were talking about in terms of how much they cost, right? I mean, like, you have them, they're cheap, and they're both good, and right now with the new CBA too, and like, you don't want to be like, they already decided they don't want to be in cap hell So it's tough because you're right. You would have to add a lot more salary if you're trying to get somebody of Markkanen's new level now. I can see the wheels turning. What do you
You
think?
know, how much value does that cheap contract have if you're a playing team, right? Like, say you think it's going to be 2-3 years before Podziemski and Kuminga are good enough to compete for a title. Like, well, by that point, you're paying them, right? Like, that's kind of the issue you
Yeah,
run into. You get a little like, oh, we have this good, super young, super cheap player. But by the time we as a team are good enough to take advantage of him, the contract is expired. It's a really dangerous thing. I think the platonic ideal here is Kawhi, right? Where the Spurs get Kawhi and he's good enough to be really helpful right away. But most of the time, you don't get Kawhi, right? Like most of the time, you don't get somebody who's good enough to be finals MVP in his 4th year. And even if you do, your team surrounding that guy isn't good enough. Most of the time, I think just pick a direction, pick either old guys or young guys, and just run with that.
yeah. And then on top of that, I mean, then Steph is 2 years older and maybe not quite as good. Yeah, you probably do need to try sooner rather than later. I want to talk about LeBron too. He got dunked on by Yabusele, which wasn't his finest hour. He's going to have that thing, Men in Black, scrubbed from everybody's memory. He's going to use that little device, and everybody's going to forget about it. But he had an unbelievable tournament, and I love that he came out with the gold shoes today. Like that's such a LeBron thing. Like if you're walking off in gold shoes after falling to France and getting a silver medal and not winning the 5th straight gold medal, it looks ridiculous. But putting on the gold shoes ahead of time and delivering looks amazing. And like this guy's legacy, he just keeps adding at a time when you think that he should be done at. Like longevity is something that he'll be able to continue with, right? I mean, he's going to play another however many years that he wants to play, which is amazing. We've talked about this before, and I hope he goes full dad game YMCA situation, 45, 48 years old. That would be fantastic. But absent that, as you mentioned, this is probably his last big moment, and he did it at 39.
He had the most to lose and the least to gain by playing, right? Like Steph had never done this before. Winning the gold medal
Right.
meant something to him that it maybe didn't to the guys who have done it before. And Durant, by virtue of the way his NBA career has gone, like he's not tethered to a team or a specific moment or anything in the way that LeBron is. Like he's kind of an NBA nomad. Being Team USA's staple is like a really significant part of his legacy. LeBron didn't need this. LeBron already had his 2 golds. LeBron's place in history is already etched. He didn't have to do this. Imagine the way we'd be talking if they'd lost to Serbia or if they'd lost today to France. Like he could have like hurt himself. He could have made himself the object of derision. And he still did it. And he played and he was incredible. And he was just as good as we would have hoped. Like the man is pushing 40. Like we're a year or two away from him having a full-on Santa beard at this point. The gray
Which
is
I love.
Never. It really is incredible. And it's not even like he was a part of this team. They ran the offense through him, right? Like
yes,
part of why Jason Tatum wasn't playing was because the guy at his position was doing everything.
Yeah, it was his team. I just want to stop on the aesthetics here because I love him leaning into the gray beard.
Oh, yeah.
And I like, because a couple years ago, he was messing with his hairline and it looks kind of phony. And now he's like, yeah, I'm going bald and I got gray in my beard. And guess what? I am still better than like 90 whatever percentile players on the planet. And I'm going to not only come and play in the Olympics, but it's going to be my team. And we're going to win it all doing it, as you said, playing through me. It just, for him, yes, you're right. His legacy is already cemented. But I think him adding these things on top of a career that's already phenomenal, like adding like significant things too, right? It's not like some teensy little record, esoteric thing that, people could forget about and just it's an item number 236 on his resume. This goes pretty high on the list.
I mean, I'm not the first person to make this point, but like the Tom Brady comparisons are starting to become more and more evident here, where like it's not just longevity in the sense that you stuck around this long. It's being great at a point where we just didn't think it was possible to be great, right? Like it's feasible. It's not going to happen with the Lakers given where the team is, but like he's good enough to be the best player on an NBA champion in his age 40 season, right? It's a little like Brady winning a Super Bowl at 44 or 45, whatever he was in that last Tampa year. Like we're just at a point where I tend not to think too much about longevity when I think about where do players rank all time. I mostly just think about like, how good were they? How good were they at their best? LeBron is at a level of longevity now where it's not even just that he's been around longer than anyone else. he is challenging our conceptions of what's possible at a certain age.
Yes.
It
And
is
that longevity, I mean, I do kind of think about like what kind of career, obviously I think about what kind of player were you in your career, but the guys who do it at a certain level for a long time get boosted for me. And LeBron is like way beyond everybody else on that graph. Like if you were plotting it on an XY, it would be like off the chart. You couldn't plot it because he's still, I don't know what percentage of LeBron he still is, but it's very high. It's
I
like,
mean, he might end up having like as many great seasons as Magic Johnson and Larry Bird combined. Like, think about that. Like, the defining players of the 1980s, that he's had both of their careers. It really, there's just, you run out of superlatives at this point. And
it's really
it does
amazing.
really make you look back on the Lakers and say, like, guys, you have something really, really special here. I just, please take advantage of it. And I look back on the trade deadline where the Warriors asked about him. The Lakers said, like, hey, is this something you're interested in? Man, would have been really
That
cool.
would have been fun.
Go to the Warriors and him and Steph have a real shot at the end. I really hope that at some point he really, really leans into the gray and we get an iconic photo of him doing a tomahawk dunk with a fully gray beard.
Like a fully gray beard.
Fully gray Santa Claus beard. That would be a legacy shot, like in a literal sense. It would be a legacy photo.
Yes. I'm super on board for that. And it makes me think about, and again, we're going to get to your 2028 forecasting, but like sort of the torch passing here. We had a moment in the game that felt very much like that, where the actual graybeards were handing it off to Ant Edwards and some of the younger guys, where KD, who's Ant's childhood hero, tossed him an alley-oop. And it was like, the U.S. men's track team, the 4x100 relay team, can't hand the baton off. The men actually did. They tossed it up to him. He threw down the lob, and it's going to be Ant and Devin Booker and those guys moving forward. That was a super fun moment. I really enjoyed that.
I felt like almost everybody on the team, I mean, except for Halliburton, who barely played, and I guess Tatum, kind of had some super fun moment, right? Where like Ant was a bench guy. He said he was going to be the number one option on the team. It didn't pan out that way. But you go up and down the roster and you feel like everybody had a defining moment. Everybody got something really positive out of this. And for Ant, it was that alley-oop to Durant, right? It was this moment of you're throwing a pass to your childhood hero. Like it really was just a special moment for his career. You go up and down the roster. Like Devin Booker did not have an especially flashy Olympics. Devin Booker was the closing shooting guard in the two biggest games of the tournament.
Yeah.
That says a lot about where he stands in the NBA. Bam and AD both. Like Embiid was the center that the team was built around. He was one they really recruited. Bam and AD were spectacular for most of the tournament. Embiid has his marquee moment against Serbia. You just go up and down the roster and like almost everybody got something out of this. Like some reputational boost, some moment that we're going to remember forever, some moment that's even just personally significant. And that's really cool. And you don't always get that with Team USA.
Yeah, it was pretty great. Let's do a little winners and losers while we wait for Bill, who's still doing HQ duty. I think we're all in agreement. You and I are both in agreement that Steph Curry is a massive winner from this. LeBron is a massive winner. You give me a winner, I'll go winner, and then we'll do a loser.
Well, let's do Devin Booker, right? Like, I didn't think Devin Booker was going to start, or I didn't think he was going to be, like, I thought Ant was going to be ahead of him in the pecking order. And there were even moments where I sort of thought going into the exhibitions, does it maybe make sense to play Halliburton over him, right? Because, like, his skill set and Ant's are pretty duplicative, and Ant is just, like, a little bit better at, like, defense, at, like, the things that you need for Team USA.
Mm-hmm.
He was the closer in the two biggest games. He has so much respect from the other players on this team and from Steve Kerr. It made me reevaluate a little bit. Like, have I been too low on Devin Booker? And if you think about the Suns roster, right, where they have Durant, they have Beal, having a third star, and he's the second star on that team, really, but like having one of those three stars able to take a little bit of a backseat on offense and do the dirty work, that's really, really helpful. And I think I'm going to come away from this tournament having gained more respect for Devin Booker than any other player on the team.
Yeah, you know what? I was kind of surprised too, because when they decided to put KD into the starting lineup, I figured they'd just leave Drew put and take Booker out, and they decided to take Drew off, and which spelled doom for Derek White in the final game. But it ended up working out, and you're absolutely right. Devin Booker played great. He had a great tournament, and the same thing. Like I'm not like super high on Devin Booker generally, but I am higher on him than I was before this tournament started. So yes, he's a winner for sure. I'm going to do something that's going to annoy producer Aaron here and give a winner to Steve Kerr, because Steve Kerr, he
Okay.
took more incoming in this tournament than Steve Kerr. Everybody was angry at him for all of his decisions, and guess what? They won the gold. I mean, literally, Jason Tatum's mom and dad were on Twitter complaining about Steve Kerr not playing their child. Look, Steve Kerr has won 5 championships as a player, 4 more as a coach, NBA championships, and now has led Team USA to a gold medal. He's had an unbelievable career. And you might look, the Serbia game, you, me, Bill, we were talking about his rotations, and I was like, okay, there's some quirky things here that are happening that I wasn't exactly in love with. But he had good coaches next to him. It's not like they weren't talking, and he was like, I'm not listening to you, Spo, and I'm not listening to you, Ty Lue. I'm going to just do my own thing. I think he's a very good coach. I think the hate has gone too far. Now he's an Olympic gold medalist. And for all the people who hate Steve Kerr, this is what you get. Steve Kerr right in your face.
Coaching Team USA is a really thankless job. If
Thankless.
You think about it, right? Like it's a harder job than anybody thinks, because, oh, you have all this talent. Well, you don't have any time with them. You get them like 2 weeks before the tournament starts. You barely get to practice. You have all these egos to manage. You're going to get criticized no matter what. And God forbid if you lose, that's like a stain on your resume forever. I don't even think the coaches get gold medals. Somebody I'll have to confirm that for me, but
Is that right? No, that can't be right.
I don't think they get an actual physical medal. I think it's just the athletes that do. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
You're right, because in other sports they don't, right?
I don't think
in other sports they don't. Like, it's not like the diving coach gets one for the 10-meter platform.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's a pretty thankless job. It's a job if I were head coach I wouldn't want to do. Like we criticize Kerr a lot. There are things that he deserved some criticism for, but like he led them undefeated through probably the hardest Olympic field that there's ever been. If you stack up the 11 other teams in this field compared to every other, like, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 of the best 11 or 12 came from this tournament. Yeah, we have confirmation from producer Aaron. No medals for the coaches, which I don't like, but it just adds how thankless it is.
For team sports like basketball, where the coach is integral, or soccer, I'd think that they should get them, as opposed to. I get it though. You're not going to give it to the high jump coach, right? Yeah. So I get it. Well, anyway, I am happy to be in the position of being the Steve Kerr defender on this program, because everybody else hates on him, and I think it's gone too far. And Steve Kerr just keeps winning. He's a winning coach. I'm thrilled for Steve, and also he's just a nice dude. He's one of the most professional people I've ever interviewed and interacted with. And he's really thoughtful and smart, and I'm like full mark Steve Kerr. All right, give me a loser.
I mean, it would have been easy to say Embiid before the Serbia game. Like, I guess we have to say Tatum, right? Like,
yeah, we have to say Tatum.
I think what really happened more than anything was Serbia is not a wing-heavy team, so it didn't make sense to play him against Serbia, at least not that much. And then the shot just wasn't falling for most of the tournament, right? Like, I don't think we're going to leave this tournament saying Jason Tatum is a bad shooter. But if the shot isn't falling and it's gotten a little bit worse in the NBA lately, and you don't have matchups that make much sense, like, at the very least, Tatum is like now at a point where he's not an automatic play for Team USA with all this talent. Like, I think he's maybe the 5th or 6th best player in the NBA. I'm not taking that away from him, but like, it says something that Steve Kerr had this guy in the building for all of the practices, all of the exhibitions, and decided in 2 of the biggest games of the tournament, I don't want to play him. Now, would they have won if they'd played Tatum against Serbia? Like, I still think so. Like, I probably would have put him on the floor. But he's somebody that, given being the best player on a champion, being, one of the 5 or 6 best players in the NBA, first team All-NBA, you would think that his stature now would be close to where LeBron's and Durant's and Curry's at, like where they are. And those were the guys who were playing all the minutes, and Tatum could not have been further from that.
Yeah. It's a bummer when, if you're Jason Tatum, you're in the conversation for finals MVP, you win a championship, the 18th in organization's history, you get a Supermax contract that'll make you the richest player in NBA history, and then you spend the entire Olympic run being marginalized and sitting on the bench. And on top of that, to add to the indignity, your mom and dad complain about your playing time on social media. That, to me, like, I want to just go winner one more time for Philadelphia and people like me who love to hate all things Boston. Because when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is a gift from the gods. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mom and Dad Tatum, who I'm sure are super nice people and must really love their son. But that was a gift. You might as well have just wrapped it and sent it right to my house. Thank you so much for that.
Can we call the Celtics as a team a loser? Because you also have the Jaylen Brown stuff.
Yes.
And like, look, I'm not trying to sow discord within the Boston Celtics. I'm just saying, like, if there was going to be a locker room civil war there, Tatum and Jaylen barely playing in the Olympics and White and Holiday playing integral roles, like, that would maybe be the start of it. I don't think so. Like, I think they're still the championship favorites, but like, sure, let's throw a grenade into that locker room and see what happens.
I am not a conspiracy theorist. I generally don't go in for those things. That's Ashley's role on this show. I wish you were here because I have one. Are you aware of the conspiracy theory that Spo got together with Kerr and was like, just throw me a little bone here. We don't really need Tatum. Let's sow a little discord.
It's genius, right? Because if you looked at it purely from the Kerr angle, he's in the West. He has nothing to gain. He's not going to face the Celtics in the finals. But Spo, like, the Heat could win 25 games and somehow they would find themselves on the same side of the bracket as the Celtics. Like, it's just voodoo magic at this point, right? So, you know what? Maybe it was a Spo thing.
It's very, very funny. I'm trying. I guess we'd have to. Producer Aaron wants to throw out that Draymond was a winner because he flew to France just to hate watch Rudy Gobert and Embiid, and then he also ends up in Steph's iconic night photo, which is fantastic. We'd have to throw out Rudy as a loser on this one too because he did play more today. What did he play? 12 minutes, I believe. He played 12 minutes. He took one shot. I don't think he was particularly effective. And on top of that, did you see Ant trash talking him? That was fun.
Well, yeah, that's talk about another locker room issue we might have after this.
But
I guess Kobe and Powell were fine, so Ant and Rudy will be fine too. From the Gobert standpoint, though, like, sometimes you think about passing the baton with these national teams. It feels like they just ripped it out of Rudy's hand and gave it to Wemby, right? Like, because Rudy was the leader of the team that won silver in Tokyo 3 years ago. Like, Rudy is still the defensive player of the year in the NBA. Like, his stature as a great basketball player is not really in question, but he was just taken out of the rotation basically for the semifinals and the quarterfinals, played, a lot less than we would have expected today. And I think there was some thought coming into this tournament that, like, France's signature mode of playing was going to be the Twin Towers with Wemby and with Rudy, and their way of winning was going to be, well, we're just going to take away the paint entirely. We hope you make a bunch of threes. Well, now you look ahead to 2028 and, like, is Rudy just, like, not on the team? Is he the backup center? Lasor was more important than him. Like, we haven't even really talked about Gershon Yabusele, who, like, it's fun. I'm trying to find an NBA team for him. And I
told you the Sixers have a spot open.
I was thinking about your Sixers, and then I thought to myself, well, they only have minimums available to spend, and I don't know if Gershon Yabusele is a minimum player.
Wow. I mean, he hasn't played in the NBA, though, since what? Like, it was like 18-19 was his last season, right?
It's been a while.
That's what I mean. Like, this is one of those things now. If you're Yabusele and you just had, like, the tournament of your life and the game of your life in the biggest stage that you probably ever played on, well, most significant for you, I would parlay that into an NBA ticket immediately and take whatever I could because you've been out of the league for a while. You're probably going to make more money overseas, but I'd rather be in the NBA and, like, rejuice my career a little bit.
If you think you're, like, a good playable role player in the NBA, which I think Yabusele, like, the guy I saw in this tournament is, like, he can help a good team. What might make sense for him is to sign a 1-year deal with a contender where you can get minutes, play deep into the playoffs. And, like, if you're good, now you're talking about a deal where you're making 8 figures every year, right? Like, it doesn't really make sense for Yabusele to sign, like, a multi-year deal in the NBA because that's just money that he could get in Europe anyway. But if he could, like, get a foothold and quickly establish value, then as a free agent in 25 or 26, he could maybe cash in because, like, I look at him and at the very least, you see a lot of the Kenneth Faried stuff where the motor is so high. He's so strong inside, but he's also got a little bit of a shot. He can defend. Like, you could tell me he was the 8th man for the Sixers on, like, a real playoff run. Sure, I'd buy that.
Yeah. He's got a little Jay Crowder to him. I could take it. I wanted to hit one more thing before we go on to your 2028 prediction for the roster here. Are you aware of Kevin Durant after the Serbia game and how he decided to spend his time on social media. All right, for those of you who somehow missed this, and again, we want to thank everybody who's joining us here on YouTube. You can also find us wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Please subscribe and leave a review there. But Kevin Durant, after they win against Serbia in a game that they almost lost, everybody knows that Kevin Durant is like terminally online. And there was this conversation that some rando, like Kevin Durant had said, like, hey, you know, about fan culture, there's a lot of idol worship out there, a lot of hate and division. And some rando replied, well, you know, that's kind of been around forever. The same thing was going on with MJ and Bird. And it really only seems like it's a problem now because, you know, of Giannis and Jokic getting that kind of love and treatment. And KD responded, I'm going to read this whole thing. That's what y'all do, y'all clowns. You use players to push these corny agendas y'all got. This is a brotherhood, and you're not a part of it. It's a problem now because social media got you clowns walking around with your chest out like you mean something, and then all caps, you don't, 3 exclamation points. Your takes don't matter, still all caps. Here's my thing about this. When this happened, Sam, it was 5:21 in the morning in Paris, and he was responding to somebody with a handle at 6ManYT who has 1,200 followers. KD, if this dude doesn't matter, why are you responding to him at 5:21 in the morning, dude? What are you doing?
Who among us hasn't lay in bed late at night and just like sent dumb tweets, right? Like he's really one of us. He's a man of the people.
He's amazing at it.
You know, I look back at how this all started with Durant, like the first tweet out of his storm that night. It was somebody on Twitter basically saying like, hey, Serbia didn't win, but they took this incredible team wire to wire. They should be really proud of the way they played. And Durant just responded to that like, what country are you from? And it was just like, that's the most benign tweet to reply to be like, hey, I think Serbia should be proud. That's what you're mad at, Kevin? Like, really? And then he gets on people for saying like Jokic is the best player in the NBA. Like he basically said like, yeah, we think Jokic is great, but we don't worship Jokic the way that you guys do. And I'm just like, Jokic has pretty clearly been the best player in the NBA for the last few years. I do wonder if there's something to the idea that like players don't respect him the way that fans do. Look, ultimately, like he's right to an extent. Like NBA discourse, it's too divisive, it's too mean. People do have agendas. I'm with him on that to an extent. I don't really think he's helping with the way he's talking about it.
I just love KD. Like there's been so many instances in the past where because he had a burner and the whole bit. But KD just like refusing to get offline is just fantastic for me. All right, we've been going for a while. Let's get into, we've gone through pretty much everything. Let's get into forecasting your 2028 team because you had some really interesting choices here. You also you put certain restrictions on it as well. So walk people through what you did here.
So I did a few things as I was projecting this roster. First of all, like, look, I think we'd all love it if LeBron wanted to go, and it's in 2020. It's in LA in 2028.
Would be amazing. 43 LeBron.
Durant could have 5 gold medals if he play, and like Durant could be the 12th man on the 2028 team. Like his game is going to age that way, and he's just so obsessed with the game that he might play. But I set an age limit. I said anybody who's going to be 34 and up, I didn't put them on this team. They might end up playing anyway, but like I don't want to be projecting what is LeBron going to look like in his mid 40s. So anybody 34 and up was out. I also set a limit of 8 All-Stars on the team. And the reason for that is that I don't want a repeat of the Tatum situation, right? I think the upside of having that 9th or 10th All-Star is just not that high compared to the downside of like you have a really famous player feeling really slighted by not playing. So I said 8 All-Stars is the max, and we're going to have role players on the team. I projected some guys to be All-Stars down the line that haven't been that yet. So here's the roster that I came up with. I had 4 ball handling guards. Those players were Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, and Devin Booker. I had 5 wings after that. Those players were Mikal Bridges, Jalen Williams, Josh Hart, Herb Williams, and then Jalen Suggs is a guard, but he's doing wing stuff. He's the defender on this team. And then I had 3 bigs. Zion Williamson, Chet Holmgren, Bam Adebayo. So where do you want to start? What's interesting to you there?
Couple of different things here. Let's start with the Josh Hart thing kind of popped for me, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's start with the top line item for me, which is that you have a Tyrese on this team, but it's the wrong Tyrese.
He was among the hardest snubs, right? There were a few of those. The ball handlers is the deepest group. So John Morant didn't make the team. Tyrese Maxey didn't make the team. Donovan Mitchell didn't make the team. Like, there were a lot of guys that I thought like had a real chance. Number one, give Tyrese Halliburton some credit within the program because he was totally fine with being the 12th man on this team. He also played for the World Cup team last year, and he played really well, right? Like, that's why he got onto this roster in the first place. His style fits FIBA really, really well. He's great at generating pace. He's great at the, super deep threes that are great, for spacing the court properly. He's just a really good fit for FIBA, and he's also a great personality to have on the team. I wanted to reward guys who had put in the time before with Team USA in the past, and that was almost a tiebreaker for me. But if you wanted to put Tyrese Maxey on this team, or if you wanted to put Morant or Mitchell, wouldn't argue with you.
Yeah, no, and I understand because you were trying to construct a team here and really avoid, as you said, what happened with this current Team USA roster where Jason Tatum. Did you hear about Jason Tatum's parents going on social media? It's kind of crazy. So you wanted to avoid that, which I understand. Were you tempted? What the second thing that popped for me was no Cooper Flagg on this, and Cooper Flagg obviously is not in the NBA yet. He's not even in college yet. He's going to play his college season, and then he's going to be in the NBA. And the hype around this kid is through the roof. And in the run-up to the Olympics during the exhibition, when Team USA was playing the Team USA select team, he apparently was having some of the best run of anybody, full men's roster, senior roster, or the select team. So any temptation there?
So do you remember who the best team or the best player on the select team was last summer before the World Cup?
I don't.
It was Cade Cunningham. And Cade Cunningham had a very good year for the Pistons. I would just say, let's maybe not overreact too much to the select team. And I want to be clear. I think Cooper Flagg is going to be a great NBA player. I'm not taking that away from him. It was just, I'm projecting this roster before he's played a college game. I think it's a little unfair to just automatically say he's going to be a Team USA level player in 4 years. So I think there's a real chance he's on the team. If you go back to 2021, when Team USA wins in Tokyo, would we have thought that Halliburton or Edwards was going to be on the team in 24? Probably not. Certainly we wouldn't have with Derek White. So there are going to be a few spots on this team from guys that we're not thinking about yet. Cooper Flagg might be that guy. I just wasn't going to rush off of a few good weeks with the select team.
I'm waiting for my Reed Shepherd glow up. He's going to take everybody by storm. I thought the way that you constructed the team was really interesting because Jalen Suggs, maybe some casuals don't realize how good he is defensively. Herb Jones, an otherworldly defender. I love that you put Jalen Williams on here. Mikal Bridges, despite the fact that the Knicks grossly overpaid for him, is one of my favorite players and is sort of like an anti-Jason Tatum in a way that he never will like complain about his role. Did you hear about Jason Tatum's parents going on social media? It's crazy. I'll go to my grave. My last words will be, did you hear about Jason Tatum's parents? Chet Holmgren also, he's going to be fantastic. Already is just a really good player. What was the hardest decision last thing for you? What was the hardest decision for you when putting this team together?
Well, I set this age limit arbitrarily, and then I looked and Derek White was too old, and I was like, oh man.
By how much?
By like a couple of months. Like I think he turns 34 in July of 28. So that one did hurt. And then Alex Caruso.
You get to grandfather him onto this.
It was hard for me to find the defensive guard. If you want to have the deeper, bigger star name, I thought a lot about the Zion thing because Zion is a little bit like Embiid, where he's at his most valuable when the ball is in his hands. And there would be games like Embiid had earlier in the tournament where okay, everybody else is humming. He's not really enhancing anybody else. My thought was, I think a staple of Team USA is having the athletic freak, having the way to just impose your will physically on another team. And if you look up and down this roster, there wasn't really a guy like that. So I just thought, let's take Zion, put him on a team with a lot of defense and a lot of shooting and say, we are going to maximize rim pressure here. Good luck stopping him and then all the other stuff that we have.
All right, last one for you. If you didn't have an age limit arbitrarily imposed by yourself, would you have put KD, Steph, and or LeBron on this team?
I think LeBron would have been a little irresponsible because then we're talking about a guy who's 43. At that point, I hope
it's the new 33.
It's just a little too much for me at that point. I think Durant is the one of the of the three that I think is likeliest to still be capable of helping the team because the shooting is never going to go away. The size is never going to go away. And I also just like when I see him tweeting like he is, I do sort of think like this strikes me as somebody who's going to play as long as humanly possible because his obsession is just basketball. And I think from a legacy standpoint, getting a 5th gold medal would mean something to him that it wouldn't really mean to anybody else. Because look, the likeliest end to Kevin Durant's career at this point is another couple of disappointing years in Phoenix where they don't really get close to the championship. And then after that, like maybe he's on another team or like maybe he's in Phoenix as they kind of retool a little bit. But like we're going to look back on Kevin Durant's career in all likelihood. He's going to have those 2 championships in Golden State. And I don't want to say, I don't believe in asterisks, but people are going to say, oh, those are Steph's teams. You know, you just jumped on a 73-win team. I think having a very distinct Team USA legacy means something to Durant that it doesn't mean to everybody else. If he plays in 28, he will have been willing to play in all 6 Olympics that came through his career, right? Because he tried to play in 08. He was one of the last cuts, and everybody says, oh, Kevin Durant should have been on the 08 team. He was one of the best players in camp. Everybody else for Team USA, the story is, oh, you know, this guy doesn't want to play, that guy doesn't want to play. If Durant could be the guy who played in his 40s and had 5 gold medals and never turned Team USA down, I think that could help offset some of the less savory parts of his legacy in the NBA. So he's the one of the 3 I think would be the likeliest.
I want them all back. Run back Team Graybeard, please and thank you. All right, before we get out of here, earlier on, you and I were wondering, hey, did Steph just steal tournament MVP, Olympics MVP away from LeBron James? He did not. As it turns out, LeBron James wins the MVP of the Paris basketball tournament. And you know what? I think rightly so. I mean, front to back, the best player for Team USA. He was really awesome.
John, let me throw a trivia question at you. How many different MVP awards has LeBron James won in his career?
How many different MVP awards? Like, are we talking MVP finals awards too?
Yeah, I'm counting anything that has the words MVP in it.
5.
It's 6.
Okay.
Regular season, 1-4. Finals, 1-4. All-Star, 1-3. In-season tournament, 1-3. Or 1-1, excuse me, won the only one. All-Star Olympics, 1-1. And McDonald's All-America game, he won it. So
wow.
It's 6. He has 6 different MVP awards. I don't know if anybody else has that many.
That's amazing. I mean, the guy's amazing. It's been such a fun run for him. I can't wait. We need a little break. You're going to take a little vacation. I'm not. I'm going to keep working. But I cannot wait for the season to start. We love basketball here. We love having Sam Quinn on as well. Make sure to read all of his stuff at cbssports.com. He's become a regular here on the show. We're going to have, after his sabbatical, he'll return and he'll join us. Starting on Monday, we're going to start doing division deep dives. So I've got the Eastern Conference, and then Bill will follow with the Western Conference the following week. But Brad Bodkin will join me on Monday for that. But for now, Bill, apparently his internet wasn't working. We thought we were going to be joined by him, but we missed you, Bill. Hope you get the internet fixed, especially by next week when we start doing the division deep dives. But for now, for Bill, who didn't make it, for Sam Quinn, who is an absolute mensch, we love having him here. I'm John Gonzalez. I want to thank all of you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend.